Up first, we'll be navigating rough seas and learning how to deal with difficult customers. We've all been there. Your presenter, Eddie McFarland, is a 20-plus year veteran of our industry, getting his start as a service technician. He's the VP of Learning and Development at Holler Enterprises and ACCA's Vice Chair. In his session, you'll discover some of the most effective ways in handling customers who just won't cooperate. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, everyone. It is lovely to be here. Certainly, I want to thank FieldEdge for the opportunity to join in this team of incredible people and share a little bit of the knowledge that we've picked up over the years. As mentioned, I'm fortunate enough to be a member of the team that serves homeowners and businesses every day with some of their most essential needs, and that's plumbing, heating, and electrical. Through that, we've dealt with all types of people, and so as you do that, you certainly learn some things. But in addition to that, is an opportunity to be part of the ACCA team. The Air Conditioning Contracts of America has allowed me not just to give back to an industry that's been very good to me, but it's also allowed me to get around other people that have, quite frankly, are smarter than me, and to learn from some of literally the industry's smartest and brightest minds. And so thank you to FieldEdge and ACCA for all you're doing and for specifically for putting this on today. So when we think about it, navigating rough seas and difficult customers, well, there's a lot that we could say about that, and as Nelson sort of alluded to, we've definitely all had our fair share of experience. You just need to go through one heat wave or one storm, and sometimes we're presented with opportunities to meet people on really bad days. And so when we think about the different strategies that we could share about dealing with difficult customers, there's lots that's been said, and I think today what I'd like to do is sort of focus on the elements that we could control. Is it really a bad customer, or perhaps is our customer just having a bad day? And so one of the things we try and do as a team is to understand that we love what we do. We love plumbing, we love HVAC, we love sort of all things electrical, but we need to sort of kind of be honest and admit that for many of our customers, especially on the service side, it's not necessarily a great day when we show up. Sure, they like our people, they like our company, they like the history that they've had with us, but for many, it may be an unplanned expense, and certainly there's much that they would probably rather spend their money on. So today, what I'd like to share is dealing with difficult customers through the lens of a customer journey and understanding what it would mean to put the customer at the center of every experience on our team. And through that, we can limit, I call this bad days and other true stories from the trenches, because as Nelson said, we've all been there, but what if we took a slightly different tack? So let's come along on this journey. So certainly, I think many of us have been to the seminars, we've spoke to the experts, and we'd like to really think that our journey looks a lot like this. Maybe we do an incredible marketing, we could partner with someone, and many of us do, or maybe we do something in-house and we just think it's brilliant, and we put it out in the wild, and well, wouldn't you know, somebody sees it, they love it, they schedule it, and through there, our best field people go out and just take care of it, lickety split, no issues, and then that customer is just ours for life. They are in the break room the next day saying, guess what, I had a water heater issue yesterday, and these people came out and they did all these remarkable things. That would be ideal, but if we're honest, I'm not sure that represents many experiences I've had. Certainly some, and certainly this is a good roadmap. But I thought what would be interesting is let's unpack the ideal or the myth or the best intended plan with perhaps what is the reality. Because if you look at this journey, this is very much about us. And there's some questions we can ask about this before we look at, what's it like for the customer and this concept of a customer journey. So, as we look at this, there's maybe the start of some questions that we could throw out to the group for yourself to examine. So who decides what marketing you do? What's the tone of that? What's the messaging? Is that you? Is that a partner? Good question to start. And when it comes time to scheduling, what's that process like? And who decided that was the process? Did anybody sit down and architect that, or was it just kind of what you did at your last place, and so that's what you do, or you went listen to some guru and they said that? Is it just sort of organically happen through experience? Every time you stub your toe, you write down a rule and you're like, not doing that again, and so now maybe, is it 10 questions? Is it 15? Is it 2? What's the right number? So there's this concept of scheduling, and then what's it like when your team is in someone's home? I'm sure you've certainly trained them, but what actually happens, and not just on a good day, but on a day with a difficult customer? So there's lots of questions. And here's the challenge to all of us. What is the no BS reason that somebody should be a loyal customer? When I think about all of these, I'm reminded of Jim Collins, and his fabulous book, Good to Great. He talks about, a leader's job is to confront the brutal facts. And when I think of ours for life, I think, why should a customer decide that they should do business with us or be loyal or consider themselves part of the family? So in our house, we like to talk about, I remember my kids were young, they said, hey, they want to know when they could say certain words and do certain things. And they said, when will I be an adult? And a definition in our house, and quite frankly on our team, is an adult. You become adult when you understand that you alone are solely responsible for where you find yourself. And when I think about difficult customers, I always I can't really change anybody else, but I can use that opportunity to reflect myself and say, well, what did I do to either mitigate or enhance this experience, or to drive a customer to have a worse day or a better day? And so let's focus on ourselves if we can, because I think that's a productive use of our time. So if we look at it, this might represent a more honest version of a customer journey. You know, I think for those that maybe aren't familiar with the concept, it gets talked about a lot, but a customer journey is just a process where you look at the linear process, and then at each step, you try and imagine the emotional state of your customer. So is it negative? Is it a positive experience? Would you say we've alleviated some tension, or caused to more tension to show up? And certainly bonus points, you can do this for your external customers. That it's really powerful when you do this for your internal customers as well, but that's a separate webinar. So when you look at it, let's be honest about how customers decide they need to have somebody like us in their house. Generally, I consider myself, passionate advocate for the trades, but I don't know if I've ever woken up and said, honey, clear your calendar because tonight's date night and we're going to invite 3 plumbers around to get quotes just in case, right? It's not that kind of experience. We're not giving away Teslas or cruises, or we love it and we're radically sold out on how we can improve people's lives. But by and large, for many of the population, when they think about it, it's generally a no crap moment. Right, that they woke up to a house that was hot when it was meant to be cold, or vice versa. Or they woke up to water coming from somewhere where it's not meant to come, or water not going down a drain the way it's meant, or lights not coming on, and that's just not a pleasant experience. There's a lot of tension. When you think about it very quickly, it's like, I don't even know if I've ever been in this situation before. Who do I call? Many people reach out to family. Increasingly, we're seeing things like the Neighborly app or Nextdoor, or certainly some of the other social platforms like, hey, emergency, looking for a recommendation. If we're real lucky, maybe they'll look at a sticker on the unit, and if it's our sticker, maybe they'll call us. I'm always amazed to hear from homeowners that that's still a thing. But that's not a foregone conclusion. Finding someone or knowing who to call is only half the battle. They don't know if that's going to be a good experience. And generally, there's 2 things going through a homeowner's mind that we found. One is, how long is this going to be like this? Because I woke up and I had a full day planned, or I came home from work and had a full evening planned. I don't really have time for this. I need answers. And secondly, how much is this going to cost us? You can do searches and you can find the average savings for the state you live in, or for the city you live in. You can find the net worth. Very few people have, decided, okay, 401k is funded, kids' college funds funded, and emergency replacement for water heater or a heating system, and these are major expenses often. So there's this tension, and so there's two questions that they want answered, and it's very difficult to find that information. And just because they've maybe been told about us or they found our sticker, let's move. I added this consideration step because just because they know about us, there's still this trust factor, right? And so how do I know I can trust them? So let's say their dad's told them who they've used, or their mom told them, or they found a name on a sticker. What is that experience like when they're still on the phone? I don't know if anyone's handled being on the phones lately, but it's not uncommon to have them get on the phone call, say, here's what I need to know. When can you get here, and how much are you going to charge me? And we usually have scripting, and we're like, well, I'll be happy to answer that. And just a few questions, they're like, never mind, I'm calling 5 people. And they do this sort of play this Google roulette or some version of that where they're calling everybody just to see who can scratch that itch for them, because they want this thing. There's a lot of urgency around it. And so they're like, oh no, if we do get someone, what is that like? What is that experience like? So who takes that call? What are they saying? Smart people than me have done whole studies on this, and they call this adoption friction. So like I've sat in our bullpen in our call center, and I've heard us ask questions like, um, like, how long have we done business with you? And certainly there's a lot of questions we need, like, do we need a ladder? And they're all good, but from a customer adoption friction standpoint, what questions are you asking? Who's in charge of deciding that we ask those questions, and who's in control of that experience? Because so far everything that we've talked about is an experience. And so when you look at that, someone answered, and maybe they're not quite there yet because we haven't been able to tell them how it is. Maybe they push forward and we've got an excellent CSR, our best CSR on their best day is like, I understand what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on a waiting list, and we'll get hold of you. And they're okay. So they're back to neutral state. You can see on the slide we've sort of navigated like, oh no, like, oh, okay, well, I've got someone, maybe this will be positive, and like, I just need to know, maybe that's negative. And so as we look at the acquisition, the trip charge seems fair, tomorrow seems fair, I get it, there's a storm, okay, so, but then what's that service experience like? Is that a nice clean truck? Is it on time? Did we call beforehand? All those things that we've all been in the seminars. But then our technician, so much we all spend so much money on a brand, and a definition for branding I like is a brand is nothing more than how a customer experiences you, and so much of the experience comes down to what how people feel on the phone when we talk to them, and how they feel once we're in the home. And so do we have if we look at our teams, they're made up of all different kinds of people, and so we can certainly say we've got team members that have better strengths, and no, maybe they're super technical, but they don't really like talking about money, or they just like to get the work done, or they talk too much and aren't very technical. So what's that experience like, and who decided that? So as you go in there, it's like, did they just disappear? Sort of wave at them as they went down to the basement, came back up 12 minutes later with an $800 bill, and they're patting themselves on the back because they figured out really quick, right? What is that experience like? Is it negative, positive? And then lastly, loyalty. Thanks for sharing future options. You listen to me and let me decide. So as you can see, I would encourage you to look at the concept of customer journey here. So if we look at it, there's blocks, right? And this is where I think there's an opportunity for us to understand. There's the process, the step that we go through. What is that touch point? And you can take a look at each touch point. You can think, what's the customer's default disposition? You can look at overall customer experience. You can actually identify potential pain points here, and then you can work together as a team to improve them. And you can certainly read these. And again, if you think of these major milestones in customer journey: awareness, acquisition, service, loyalty. Do they consider yourself a customer of yours, or are they just someone that used you once? And we all know about the transactional nature of our work sometimes. So a couple of important points here. As you go through this, it's really important that we don't sort of believe our own hype. We all spend a lot of money on marketing, telling people how awesome we are, but as we go through this, the challenge is always to have an unfiltered, unbiased perception of the customer's journey. And there's much that is difficult about our side of this equation, but we need to ruthlessly put the customer at the center of our journey. A couple of reasons. One, if we do this, perhaps, just maybe, we will build a customer experience that will limit the bad days, that will limit the difficult customers. If, after all, every step is a natural conclusion of what they've been told before, we're much more likely to have a happy customer. I've been married 26 years and I have 2 wonderful kids, and everything I've learned about meeting people we care about's expectation tells me that it's much easier if we set those expectations rather than just guess or leave them go unspoken. So this is really an opportunity to build a connected experience that delivers a better event for not just the homeowner, but for yourself. So if we look at it, you can look at the touch points. You know, there's great books on marketing. They talk about anywhere from 28 to 56 touches before a customer will use you, and you can think about these, and you can think, well, what is a customer meant to think through this point? You can think about pain points. What is the call to action on that? Where do we direct them? I get to through some of my work, I get to work with some really fascinating contractors and advise some incredible leading edge companies. And a lot of contractors these days they're looking to collapse that shopping journey. They're looking to take them from like, who should I use, to like booked. That was easy. And I know several contractors that are looking, they just put QR codes on all their marketing and all their stickers, and that doesn't take them to a main page. It takes them to a booking flow where that client can actually book their own call. And there's certainly companies out there that can help with that. I've worked a lot with the schedule engine team, and they certainly do that. But there's other services just like that that are interested in collapsing the shopping journey, maybe from a Facebook ad right to the booking process. So how can you look at removing friction points there? Acquisition. How easy is it to book the solution? How long do we keep people on the phone, and how well do we do it answering their question versus the questions we have, and understanding there is a balance there. But if we really look at that, we quite often add questions to our flow when we learn lessons. When was the last time we took the teacher's pen and edited some of those? And if we did that, would that lead to less upset customers if we were really clear? My friend Jerry says, always be condensing. Can we condense that, and can we use some of that time to set up clear next steps of what to expect? And so I think there's some great opportunities. And we talked about online booking, a lot of companies doing that, and some of the most successful contractors in the country are doing that, not just for delightful customer experiences, but also to drive, after hours traffic when we're perhaps not staffed. So there's this idea of awareness acquisition service. There's entire companies set up to help with this. We also, I'm host of the Schedule Engine Toolshed show, and they underwrite a show just in and around helping technicians deliver better experiences and be better communicators. So you can do that. But there's this idea ultimately at the bottom of a lot of customers' mind is, can I trust these folks? Like, trust is one of those intangible things. There's an expression I often quote from back home. I grew up in Scotland, and one of the expressions we have is, if you have to tell people you're famous, it's not working. And it's just this idea, like, if you were famous, you wouldn't have to, tell people you're famous. And we laugh at that, but we do the same in our business. Oh, we're professionals, we're trusted. We have all this literature and leave behinds that talk about how long we've been in the industry. I would suggest that perhaps a better way isn't to tell people, but to show them. And it's as simple as every step being of the natural fulfillment of what you told them would happen next. And so that there's a lot of opportunity for the service there. And then of course, loyalty is the natural conclusion of a relationship that is mutually beneficial, but where we feel taken care of. We're loyal, and if we take a process and the opportunity to put the customer in the center of all that we do, how would that look, and where would the opportunity be there? And so what I like to think about is, great, Eddie, thanks for the TED talk, but now what? Well, I kind of like to, I like to think of this as an opportunity to develop our business, and just some simple questions that we can ask. If we took each of those blocks and we return to the confront the brutal facts. If we understand the customer journey, it may start negative, but you know, if you do the digging around and you find it starts negative, would that change the way you market? Would that change the call to action? Would that change the images you used? Would that change the tone? There's a lot of between marketing and even consideration. Even the first line that you answer the phone with, like, how can I make you smile today? Or it's a great day. Does that, when you can start to see how when you put the customer, and specifically the customer's emotional state, at the center of why and how you do things, you start to see slight nuances, nothing dramatic, but slightly better opportunities to ask better questions, right? And so where would those people be in that state? Does that change where you advertise, or the frequency, or even the times of day that you advertise? In today's marketing world, we have all kinds of very surgical opportunities to be very, very specific. So you can see here how you could take that lens to ask questions. Consideration. So I like to think of each of these as having different team members involved. And so if you took your marketing team or your marketing partners, or maybe it's you, and if you're doing it all yourself, perhaps there's an opportunity to get with a like-minded business friend, or a member of ACA, for example. Like, they have these mixed groups, and you can take this question yourself, and you can get these support, and you can get input, consideration, acquisition. Sit down with the people answering your phone and say, what should it be? Blank slate, take them through this, ask them about what they think the customer state is. They're going to know, because they're the sharp end of the spear, and they're the first ones to meet that contact. They're going to be hyper aware of the emotional state. You can do the same with service techs. You can walk, this is a great exercise to do with technicians, and walk this through. Where the power comes is understanding and bringing these groups together, and all of a sudden you start to build a sense of unity across your team, because now perhaps your service techs, who just think dispatch is waiting to pounce on them with a 3 o'clock call, now they understand a little bit more of that journey and why certain things are done, and they can understand how they're being set up. And so it kind of does matter if you're on time, and it kind of does matter if your shirt's tucked in, and it kind of does matter if you walk straight up to the door. All these things, maybe now they'll have a reason, and they'll discover that for themselves. So you can see lots of different things going on there. Great exercise for everybody in your company is, why would somebody be loyal to us? And it brings the team along for the journey, rather than sort of coming back from a conference and saying, right, here's what we're going to do. So you can see I just put some next steps. I'm a big fan of webinars and conferences and breakouts, but I always like to think, okay, so what should I do with this? And here's a little map, and we'll be happy to share this with you. But it starts with mapping the current state, and then look at the desired state, and then identify the gap, and then put that into sort of small chunks, and delegate that to someone if you can. If you can't, just prioritize them, and start where you are with what you have, and work through these for each of these steps, and put measurements in place. Now all of a sudden you're starting to get action, and opinions are great, but action leads to execution, and execution is how we win. So it's one thing to know this, but how do you turn this into a plan, and how do you distribute the work that's required to do this throughout your team? So here's some basic ideas in and around what you can do. So lastly, just sort of to recap, we've talked about difficult customers, and certainly there's always, I think it's about 2% of the population that are just gonna, God bless them, whatever their case is, they're just having a bad day or a bit of a bad season in life. And I once, as a technician, I remember getting really reamed by a customer, just yelled at in their living room, and sort of like I didn't really see him. I was probably like a deer in headlights, and he just looked at me and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not really yelling at you." And I remember I actually turned around to see if anybody else was there, and surprised there wasn't. But these people, it's an absolute privilege to meet people where they are, and everybody has a story, and as service professionals, they're essential. we just happen to have the privilege to meet those people wherever they're at in that story, and that's the call that we respond to, as people that are guardians of their community and say, when you call us in your time of need, we will come. And sometimes that means they're not having a great day. But if we understand that we can't really control that, but we can control perhaps what we do to set ourselves up better and remove some of the friction that we're putting in our place. You can see here, set a date and bring people in. Like, this is one of those things where opinions are not going to hurt you. If you have some really engaging team meetings in and around this. The big thing about this, for it really to work, you need to understand your ego is not your amigo. You may be a great company, you may be the best in your market, but it is our opportunity to be your best self, your better self, to be better today than you were last year and the year before. So understand this isn't really about you. There's many reasons why. Maybe when you talk about a question or a policy that you have in place and somebody says, well, I think we should get rid of it, there's no golden calves. It's not really about you. It was maybe a good idea at the time, but have your listening ears on and ask follow-up questions about why people think they should get rid of this step or that set. Decide who else can come along this journey with you, who else should be involved. If you have team meetings, absolutely, these are great team meetings. You can do these as icebreakers. You can do these as standalone events, and then you can bring different stakeholders from different teams to review the entire customer journey. But you could take a sliver of this with some of your team. And where else can you mine for truth? Where can you have there's tons of social sites where customers will speak the truth, and it may hurt, but it's their truth. And as the person that ultimately, Adam Smith taught us that they decide with their dollars where they're gonna vote. So we have to have our listening ears on. Again, double down on that. Set your pride aside. Anchor it with measurable, attainable, realistic, time anchored goals. And then if as you get these and you start to see it, celebrate. Remember, culture in a company is nothing more than what gets celebrated and what gets rewarded. And so when and what's rewarded gets repeated, and so that's kind of how we see that. So I just want to wrap up. I know we have just a little bit of time here, so I'll stop sharing the screen here and just welcome if there's any questions. People can certainly write them in the chat, and I'll be happy to take them offline and get back to you. If you want a copy of the deck, I'll also be happy to do that. But as we wrap up, I would encourage you to perhaps look at the challenge of dealing with difficult customers as an opportunity to level up, to meet with your team, and to do what you can to bring more to the table to make every situation just a little bit better. So with that, I believe I am coming in around about on time. And so if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. And if not, we will happily give everyone a chance to ask the questions or hand back control. Alrighty, there we are. Doesn't look like there's any questions,
Hey,
Nelson. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Eddie. That was extremely insightful. Handling the customer journey is very important, and it's a lot to think about there. So thank you for your presentation.